All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike. And today we're going to be breaking down not UFC, but PFL. We've got PFL Europe 3 this weekend. It's their playoffs, and I guess the championships for PFL Europe are next. This is something new for this year, and it's been pretty good so far. Some great fighters, and we're going to see a bunch of them again in this card. No UFC this week, so this is all you guys are getting from me. I doubt I'll put out another video for any other regionals, but I will have other bets up, so make sure to look out for those on my Twitter at Couch Warrior Pod or my Bet MMA page, also under the same name, Couch Warrior Podcast. And anything else to say? Oh, and I'm going live. Well, this isn't going to be live, so you guys probably won't see it, but I'm going live in about an hour with Wiz Does, my guy. We're doing our weekly Dana White's Contender Series show, breaking down week 9. So make sure to run that back. Lines aren't even out yet, so you'll be able to get nice and early and be ready for those. And let's hop right into the card. We've got 13 fights, 2 guys who just got signed and are big names. We've got Cedric Doumbe, not Dumas, I'm the worst. Cedric Doumbe and Abdouraguimov, who's the beast. We'll talk about both of them when we get there, but they're the big signings for this card, and I imagine PFL really wants them to win. So let's do it. So Yazid Chouchane versus Henrique Madureira. Yazid, he's 9-3-0, 34 years old, 5'8" for him. Don't have anything else. Don't have his reach. Madureira, he's 5'2-0. He's going to be the same age at 34, 1 inch taller. Now, Madureira's coming in on short notice. The original fight was Yazid versus Luigi Vendramini, and Vendramini was going to be a really big bet for me. I thought he clearly was going to win that fight. But now with Madureira, we've got a new matchup and a new fight to talk about. First thing I want to say is Madureira, I don't think he's actually 5'9". I think he's taller than that. It looks wrong. Doesn't seem that way. And I think he's going to be the much taller guy here. With that, he doesn't have the best defense. He seems to have a bit of a tall man's defense. He does hit pretty hard, but a lot of it, he's throwing hooks, nothing too clean. Takedown defense looks pretty good, but I haven't seen it tested all that much. He's coming in on short notice, like I mentioned, just 3 days. He hasn't fought in 3 years since 2020, and his last fight was against a guy who was 35 years old. He's 38 now. So not the best resume, not the best look on the tape. And with Yazid, he's decent. He's nothing crazy, but he's a good fighter, and I think he should win this relatively comfortably. The striking looks good. He's a bit loopy as well, but I think he's a decent striker. His only knockout loss comes to Muhammad Yahya, who's making his UFC debut soon against Trevor Peek. So that should be a fun fight and not a bad loss for our guy Yazid here. His wrestling looks good, and I think that's what's going to get the job done for him. He's definitely fought the better competition, and I think that he's going to win this pretty comfortably. Whether it's a finish, I don't know. I think it's probably going to be a decision. That's my guess. But right now the line is at he's a sizable favorite right now. I don't have it on fightodds.io, but last time I checked it out, he was like minus 225, which I think is relatively fair. I would use him as a parlay piece if I had something to parlay it with, which I don't really. But I think he should win this pretty comfortably. If I do end up playing it, I'll post it, so make sure to look out for that. And we can move on. Next fight up, this is a great one. We have Francis Mlambo versus Mokhtar Benkaci. Frans, he's 14-5-0, 32 years old, 5'9" with the 75-inch reach. SBG Ireland is where he trains. Benkaci, 28-0. He's 31, so he's 1 year younger. Going to be 3 inches shorter. Don't have his reach, but it's definitely shorter than Frans. And he's training out of London Shoot Fighters. Mokhtar, he's also coming in on short notice, 3 days short notice. This fight was made today, if I'm not mistaken. The original matchup was Newsy versus Frans, and I had a good bet on Newsy at like minus 125. So that sucks, but this is a good fight too. It's crazy seeing the Tapology picks because it's 10% for Mokhtar, but he's the favorite right now. He opened at minus 150 and the line hasn't budged. It's a really interesting matchup. I really thought that Frans was going to open as the favorite. I got the tape done like shortly before the line came out, and I was positive Frans would be the favorite. Big win streak, been pretty impressive. He's got good wins. Cordero in his second to last fight. Rashid Haas is also a decent win. He's a good striker. He's good at range. I like what he does at range. He's got fast hands, good combinations, nice counters, good 1-2. Output is there. He does overextend a bit, which I have some concerns about with a guy like Mokhtar, because Mokhtar can hit really hard. He's really good in the pocket. His counters are crisp. He's also got fast hands. I like when he goes to the body. He's got 9 knockout wins. Frans has been knocked out twice. The last one, though, was in 2020, but hey, he can be knocked out, and I can see why. He really overextends sometimes on his strikes and can be easy to counter. In terms of the wrestling, both guys could wrestle. Neither one does it too much. I think if anyone has the wrestling edge, it's probably Mokhtar. I haven't loved what I've seen from Frans. His takedown defense is all right. Rashid Haas took him down pretty easy. The jiu-jitsu also, it's okay, but my problem with it is he's always jumping guillotine constantly. And it's okay if you do it once or twice, but don't brundage it and just go 4 or 5 times because you're going to end up on your back. And that's what happened in that Haas fight. I've got problems with all of that. Now, Benkaci, like I mentioned, doesn't really wrestle, but when he does, it's pretty good. And I think he's going to have the slight edge here. I feel like his pressure is going to be a lot for Frans. And because Frans, he's best at range, not really in the pocket. I think he's going to get really uncomfortable if Mokhtar is using his classic pressure. And I think Mokhtar, he's going to be landing the cleaner strikes up close. Frans will land cleaner at range. But I think Mokhtar eventually can get him out of there late. I don't know if I want to bet him as the favorite, though, because I honestly thought he should be, at best, pick him or the slight dog. But I don't know what to make of it at this point. We'll see what the line movement looks like once people start playing it. And if the line flips, I'll get on Benkaci. I am considering Frans as the underdog at plus 125 because I do think he has some upside. He's a tough dude to handle. He's a little funky, unorthodox. And like I said, at range, I do think he's going to have the edge here. And Mokhtar hasn't exactly looked his best recently. So at dog odds, he's tempting, but I think I'm going to stay off of it. And if Mokhtar flips, then I'll bet him. Otherwise, I'm just going to pass on this fight. Moving on. We've got Shanelle Dyer versus Luisa Fernanda Cifuentes. Dyer, she's 2-0 undefeated. She's only 22 years old, 5'4", training out of Great Britain top team. Cifuentes is 4-2-0. She's 32, so she's 10 years older, 1 inch taller at 5'5", training out of JM team. Cifuentes is another short notice replacement, also got announced today. And honestly, Dyer should kill her. Dyer's really good. She seems to have a striking background, but she's been recently training grappling quite a bit. I think she's a jiu-jitsu purple belt at this point, and she's really good. I also think she's going to be way taller here. I don't think she's 5'4", comparing her to her last opponent. Who was it? Not her last one. I think it was this one, the Esther one. Her opponent's 5'7", and she's clearly the same height. So I think 5'4" is incorrect. I do think she's going to be the bigger woman here. And I think she's just a much better striker. She's super powerful and dangerous. You look at her last fight. I mean, a few punches in and the girl's face is busted up, bleeding. She's a good finisher. Only 2 fights pro, but both of them have ended, I believe, in the first round. And she's also 8-3-0 as an amateur. She does have 2 losses, one to Petrovic and one to Bannon, both in the UFC now, but not the best losses, but they were a while ago when she was an amateur. And I definitely don't think Cifuentes is as good as them. I think she's very bad. Her jab is okay. She strikes and flurries, but she's very hittable. Her wrestling is meh. Takedown defense is not great. Ground game just sucks all around. And Dyer, she, like I said, she's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu now. She seems to have decent grappling, but I think it's the striking that's going to get the job done for her. The way I tackled this one is I played the under at plus 105 for 1 unit. Now the limit is set at $100 right now, so it depends on your unit size, whether you can get it down right now or not. I was able to, but some of you guys might have to wait a sec. The line is also gone. I don't know about betting it anymore. It's -1. What is it now? -185. That's terrible. I would just pass at that point, but I do like that spot quite a bit. let me see. Dyer ITDs minus 150. Yeah, it's starting to get hard to find a way to play it. If you maybe want to parlay that under, I think that's a decent parlay piece, but I don't think you're going to be able to today. You're going to probably have to wait a day or two. But we can move on. I think Dyer rolls here. I don't think it's going to be even close. And let's move on to the next fight. We got to be a little quick because I got to finish by 9 so we can do the Contender Series show. Next up, we've got Valentina Scatizzi versus Manuela Marconetto. Scatizzi, 2-1-0. She's 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. American top team Rome is her camp. Marconetto, 4-4-0. She's 5'4", 1 inch taller. Going to have a 1 inch reach disadvantage training out of Great Britain top team. Not anymore. She was a slight favorite, but now they're actually at about a pick 'em. Scatizzi minus 117. And, I thought I was going to bet Scatizzi here, but it seems like a funky matchup because both women are mostly grapplers. Both women prefer to grapple. Neither one is particularly good on the feet. That said, Scatizzi literally won her last fight against Gevers. She won that on the feet, and Gevers is 5'7". It wasn't the most impressive performance ever, but her striking was pretty good. The output is definitely there. She's one of these people who comes forward with that pressure nonstop, and she uses the striking pretty well to set up her takedowns. Against Gevers, she had a hard time because Gevers is so tall and so long. But I think against shorter women like Marconetto, who's just about her height, I think she's going to have even more success on the feet. Now, Marconetto, she's not a stud either on the feet. Her striking is decent, good jab, okay output. I think on the feet, we're just about even. I'm going to edge it slightly to Scatizzi. The problem is I don't really know who the better grappler is. Scatizzi, her thing is wrestling. She's got a judo background. She's solid there. But Marconetto's also got pretty good takedowns. That's what she's doing in every fight she wins. And when she's losing, it's because she can't take the other person down. I don't really know what Scatizzi's takedown defense looks like. And I don't really know what Marconetto's looks like because I haven't seen either of them really tested because they're usually the ones shooting. Scatizzi did get submitted in her second to last fight. Girl was 4-6-0 at the time. She's now 8-6-0. So she's won 4 fights since then. Well, including that one. And she does have 7 submission wins, that opponent. So she did get subbed, but it's not a terrible, terrible look. Marconetto, she's not a finisher. She doesn't have any submission wins. So I do think Scatizzi's the side. I kind of wish I got in when she was the underdog. Now I don't know because we have all these question marks with the takedown defense on both sides. But we'll see. I might get there. It's really tempting, and I don't have too many money lines down, and she's one of the ones I like more. So I might end up getting there. Her decision is plus 250. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually write that down. I think that's a great play. I'm surprised we're there because she's now the favorite, but her decision is plus 250 and Marconetto's is minus 115. You got to take the shot. Plus 250. Because, I guess we can see a finish. I just really don't think so. I don't think either woman gets the finish. I think it's going to be a grapple fest, and I think we're going to go to decision. So I'll take Scatizzi plus 250. That will definitely be added to my slate. Probably a half unit. Maybe if I'm feeling gutsy, I'll put a whole unit on it. We'll have to see. Moving on. We've got John Mitchell versus Aleksandr Chizov. Mitchell, he's 7-1-0. Don't have his age, but I'm pretty sure he's also 25. 6 feet tall, don't have his reach, and we'll go with 971 MMA and Fitness Academy for his camp. Chizov, 10-2-0, 25. He's 5'11", so he's 1 inch shorter. 76-inch reach for him. I can't tell off the tape who has a bigger reach. Professional Sports Club is what we'll go with. I like Chizov here. Honestly, I did play him really early. I played him when he was plus 275. But I'm considering adding. Right now, he's plus 171. Comebacks minus 211 on Mitchell. I'm going to wait. Money's still coming back in on Mitchell. If I can get Chizov at plus 200 again, I think I'm going to add a unit because I like him here quite a bit the more I look at it. I think what people are doing here when they're picking Mitchell is they're looking at the Chizov-Duque fight and they're looking at Chizov's previous tape, and his takedown defense hasn't always been that great. But he's 25, and it definitely has been improving. Now, Duque did out-grapple him, but Duque is also a jiu-jitsu black belt with 11 submission wins. So it's not a terrible look, and Mitchell is nowhere near that level on the ground. Mitchell has one submission win. He's got submitted himself one time. And while his wrestling is good, I don't think it's as good as a guy like Tuke. And I definitely don't think he has a jiu-jitsu to have the same control as a guy like Tuke. So while I think he might be able to take Chizov down, I don't think he's going to be able to hold Chizov down. And on the feet, I was kind of expecting more of Mitchell, and I really don't think his striking is that good. I think Chizov is a way better striker. Great jab, nice counters, really good output, 6 knockout wins. Mitchell never knocked out, but it could happen here if he's getting tired out from all the takedown attempts. The more I tape it, the more I like Chizov. So like I said, plus 275 for 1 unit. That line is gone, but I might add at plus 200. If you can get that line, I think that's worth a 1 unit shot. I think that Chizov is a better man here on the feet, and I have a hard time seeing Mitchell control him the way Tuke did. So Chizov will be the pick, and we're going to move on to the next fight. Next up, we've got Dylan Tuke versus Jakub Kaszuba. Tuke, he's 6'3" don't have his age, but he's also another young guy, I'm pretty sure. And his height, it's not listed here, but based off of their face-off at the end of the last episode, he seems to be about an inch taller, just ever so slightly taller. On the other side, Kaszuba, 9-0, undefeated. He's 28 years old, 5'11", like I said, about an inch shorter. And, I like Kaszuba here. I get why he's the favorite, but it's tough to bet against a guy like Tuke because, first of all, Kaszuba, he's very well-rounded, but he's also still relatively green. I know he has the same amount of fights that Tuke does, and he's undefeated. But the way he fights, I just think he's still kind of green. But he's definitely the more well-rounded guy. His striking is pretty clean. He uses it to set up the takedowns. He is relatively hittable, which I don't love about him. But the wrestling is very solid. The takedowns have a really good timing. His takedown defense looks really good. And he's got 2 sub wins. The jiu-jitsu's decent. Nothing crazy, though. Now, Tuke, the problem with him is he's like a psychopath. He's an absolute psycho, screaming in his corner in between rounds. You got to love it. And the problem here for me is that he's good at what Kaszuba is good at as well. His wrestling's also good. His takedown defense, I haven't seen it tested a ton, but I think it's relatively solid. 3 submission wins. His jiu-jitsu seems a little bit cleaner than that of Kaszuba. But in the striking, it's a little tough for me. Tuke's striking is okay. Nothing special. He's pretty hittable, especially with that tall man's defense and those hands down. And I do think Kaszuba can catch him. I'm tempted to get on Kaszuba. I think the line is a little bit off in that he should be a wider favorite. I think he opened minus 300. I think about minus 250 is about right. So minus 170. It's tempting. It's just I also don't really want to bet against Tuke because, like I said, he's got that dog in him. He's an absolute psychopath. I think he's missing like 4 front teeth. But, yeah, skill for skill, I think it's Kaszuba. I just don't know if I want to take him in this particular matchup. We'll see. Moving on. We've got Ali Taleb versus Khurshed Kakhorov. Taleb, he's 9-0 undefeated, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Kakhorov on the other side, he's 10-1-0, 31 years old. He's going to be 1 inch taller and have a 1-inch reach disadvantage. I took Kakhorov here, but I got him when he was plus 300, and I put a unit down there. I thought that line was incredibly off. Now he's plus 200, minus 260 on Taleb. I kind of think it's a pass at this point. I think that Taleb does probably win this fight more often than not. He's the better striker, in my opinion. I think he's cleaner. I think he has better power. I mean, the dude is super dangerous. 5 knockout wins. His counters are really clean. He fought Oliveira, I think, about 2 fights ago. Oliveira is the guy who we just saw on the Contender Series who knocked out his opponent, Madrigal, brutally. And Taleb was able to catch him with his hands down on a counter, and he knocked him out super clean. His wrestling is also pretty good. He's got good takedown defense, 3 submission wins. He's pretty slick on the ground, good control, and he's just very well-rounded. So I do think he should be the favorite because Kakhorov, his takedown defense, it's solid. I don't think that Taleb is a grappler like Brett Johns, so I don't think he can replicate that performance where Brett Johns just completely dominated Kakhorov on the ground. But I do think he will have that open to him. I just don't think it's going to be a big weapon. And on the feet, I think it's relatively close. I mean, Kakharov's no joke on the feet. His striking solid. He's got good clinched knees, good output and combinations. He's also got power. 7 knockout wins. The only knockout loss he has is against Brett Johns, and it was on the ground via ground and pound. So it's not like he got knocked out clean on the feet, which is what Taleb does most of the time. So while I do think Taleb should win this, I think he should be the rightful favorite. I think that Kakhorov, anything above plus 250 is a reasonable play because I think that's a little bit incorrect, a little bit wide. Because if this fight takes place primarily on the feet, Taleb will be live to knock him out at any point. But if he doesn't, I think Kakhorov keeps it relatively close. So I'll pick Taleb to win, but I think the value is on Kakhorov, anything around plus 250-ish or better. Moving on, we've got Laureano Staropoli versus Baba Boundjou Nadjombe. Staropoli, he's 12-5-0, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 71.5-inch reach, training out of MMA Factory. Baba on the other side, he's 8'4" 32. He's 2 years older. He's much shorter at 5'7". He's given up 4 inches in height. I don't have his reach or his camp, but this is such a weird fight. It got added late. This wasn't even a short notice replacement, so I don't really know what they're doing here. And Baba, he fought two months ago. He fought a year and 10 months ago. But if you notice, William Gomez on 145 or Alex Morgan, I believe that fight was at 155. Baba hasn't fought at welterweight since 2019. His last fight at welterweight was in 2019. He's only got one fight since 2021. He hasn't been incredibly active. And there's also not really much recent tape on him. So I don't have a lot of information on him. And I can't give you too much here. I can tell you that he looks really hittable. His striking looks okay. He's reasonably athletic, good wrestling. Nothing special, though. He's been submitted twice. Gomez submitted him in under a minute. I believe it was a guillotine choke. Just unimpressive. And on the other side, we have Staropoli, who's a serviceable fighter. His striking is serviceable. Meat and potatoes, but it works for him. You know, meat and potatoes doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that he sticks to the basics, which could be a good thing a lot of the time. I think that he's pretty hittable himself, but I don't see a huge knockout threat here from Baba, who's only got 2 knockout wins against competition. That's pretty low level. His defensive grappling, his takedown defense, it's not the best in the world, but I don't see Baba having success here wrestling Staropoli. Staropoli is 3-0 since leaving the UFC, but his last loss in the UFC, his last fight there, was against Jamie Pickett, so not exactly the best look. But he's had some decent wins. I think it was this one. Yeah, he fought Leonardo Damiani, who was on the Contender Series. I don't remember. I think it was either 1 or 2 seasons ago. And that's a pretty solid win. So I'll pick Staropoli, but he's minus 420, which is absolutely terrible. I would never play him at that line. I thought about maybe doing the under or Staropoli inside the distance, but do I want to trust Staropoli to get a finish? I don't really think so. He got one here against Lebout. Didn't finish Damiani, but that makes sense. Damiani's tough. Carl Booth, I don't know. It's hard to trust him, period. So I'm going to be staying away more than likely, but Staropoli should roll. I don't know what the heck that matchup is about. Moving on, we've got Dakota Ditcheva versus Cornelia Holm. Ditcheva's 8-0 undefeated. She's 25 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Manchester top team for her. Holm, she's 6'5-0. She's 35, so she's going to be 10 years older, 3 inches shorter at 5'5". Same reach, though, training out of GBG MMA. I think this is light work for Ditcheva. I think she's going to roll through Holm. The only question is, when does it end? Because I'm kind of tempted on the over. The over, it's set at 1.5, which you don't often see for these weight classes at 125. And it's plus 125 for the over. So I'm really tempted to put some money on that. But at the same time, Ditcheva's so good. And if you're betting that over, you're just banking on Holm being tough enough to last. And she's tough. But has she really been tested like Ditcheva will put it on her? I don't know. Ditcheva's a really good striker with a really good striking background. 9-1-0 in kickboxing. She's a world champion in Muay Thai. I don't think it was kickboxing. I think it was Muay Thai, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Regardless, she's extremely dangerous on the feet. Very good clinch game. Really nice front kicks. I love what I'm seeing. And the best part about her is that she's well-rounded. Even though she comes from a striking background, her grappling has come a long way. And if you look at her most recent fights, she's grappling quite a bit. So it's good to see. I think that she's gonna roll here. I think she can beat Holm pretty much anywhere. Holm's wrestling is pretty good too, but I don't really see her taking down Ditcheva and holding her down. And I think because Ditcheva is well rounded, she can just pick where she's more comfortable and work from there. So the way I tackled it was I played Ditcheva by knockout at minus 135 for 1 unit. She's got 6 knockout wins. Holm has been knocked out in her second to last fight by Melissa Croden, which is a terrible look. I do believe it was ground and pound though. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it matters. I still think she's getting knocked out. And like I said, because Ditcheva can grapple, I think that a ground and pound knockout for her is also very live. So at minus 135 for the KO, I think that's a solid play. Let me just double check whether it's still there. It is, and I think you can play it. Like I said, I'm on it. So moving on, though, we've got Simeon Powell versus Abdullah Er-Ramny. Powell, he's 8-0 undefeated, 24 years old, 6'5" with an 85-inch reach. So the guy is gigantic, training out of Great Britain top team. On the other side, you have Abdullah Er-Ramny. He's 7-1-0. He's going to be 27 years old, so 3 years older. He is 5 inches shorter, though, at 6 feet tall. And I don't have his reach, but it's definitely shorter than 85 inches. That much I can pretty much guarantee you. I don't really know why this fight got made, to be completely honest with you guys. Rami does train at a good camp. He's out of All-Stars, but he's not that great. I mean, he got that knockout against Madeline Privilesu, who did get him on the ground. It was a weird fight. Privilesu was definitely the better grappler, but he got caught in the feet. He did hurt Abdullah, if I'm not mistaken. So it was just a sloppy fight. And then before that, he's just fighting competition that's questionable at best. Not that Powell's fighting studs either, but he's fighting much better guys. Amine 5-1-0, not a bad fighter. Fagundes 7-0, he's all right. Before that, the competition was definitely not as great though. But look, Powell is a really solid striker, but like Ditcheva, he's also really well-rounded. He's got a good ground game as well. He's got solid wrestling, and I think that's going to be a path for him here if at any point he feels uncomfortable on the feet. I do think he's the much better striker, and he uses his range very well. So I think he's going to beat up on Er-Ramny. Er-Ramny, he's just swinging punches, nothing clean at all. Apparently, he's got a striking background, but doesn't seem like that good of a striker to me. And his striking defense is kind of crap. Like I said, he did get hurt in his last fight. His only knockout loss is in his second pro fight in 2019, but he hasn't fought a guy anywhere near Powell's size or level or caliber. So I think Powell rolls here. And the question just becomes how to play him, right? His ITD is minus 260, which actually kind of had my attention. His knockouts plus 135, subs plus 225. But the problem there is you're essentially flipping a coin, which would make you think go with the plus 225. But my gut is saying he knocks him out. So I'm going to pick Powell. But in terms of a play, I kind of like the under 1.5. It's currently set at minus 145. Money is coming in on the over. So I'm just going to sit and wait and see what happens. But I will probably put a unit on that because I think we are going to go under 1.5. If you watch my stuff before, you know I hate under 1.5s. I absolutely hate them. But if I think that it's the spot, I'm going to play it. And I think it is the spot here. So I will play it. I'm just waiting on the line. And we can move on. All right. Next up, we've got Anthony Salomon versus Jakob Nedoh. Salomon, he's 8-1-0, 28 years old, 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach. Nedoh on the other side, he's 6-1-0. He's going to be 26, so he's 2 years younger. 6'4", so he's 4 inches taller. Don't have his reach. So Nedoh in his last fight literally knocked out the guy with the jab. It was insane. Just kind of stepped into it. He did put power behind it, but he knocked the dude out literally with the jab. You can clearly tell that he's got a lot of power. All of his fights end in round one. Never been outside of round one. 4 knockout wins, 2 submission wins. He's been subbed himself 1 time, but that was in 2014. That's his only loss. It was his debut, and it was almost 10 years ago. So you can't really put much emphasis on that. But the big question mark with him is that fact that he hasn't been out of round one, right? So what's he going to look like if he's being tested? If the fight is extended, is his cardio going to be okay? We don't really know. His striking is pretty solid. Like I said, the power is clearly there if he's knocking out guys with the jab. He's a bit hittable, which I don't love, but there's not a tremendous striking threat from Salomon, so it shouldn't be a big problem. His wrestling is pretty solid, good timing. His takedown defense is also pretty good, and he does the right things. I just wonder how it's going to look against a better opponent. Salomon, coming out of Killcliff, he does have a wrestling background, and it's pretty good, but I can see Nedoh stuffing the takedowns. It's just, again, is he going to be able to stuff them after the first round? Now, Salomon in his last fight, he didn't even need the takedown. He ended up knocking the guy out on the feet, but neither of them was very good on the feet. He got outstruck by Fleury. He's very hittable, and Will Fleury, if you know who I'm talking about, he's just not that great. It's a pretty bad loss, if you ask me, and it's even worse because Fleury's not a great striker, and he outstruck him quite a bit, so just not a good look. I think Nedoh should win this one, but I can't get behind him at this price because I just don't know what it's going to look like if we leave the first round. At minus 211, you're putting a lot of trust in him to do something we don't know that he can do. So I'll pick Jakob Nedoh. I think he wins comfortably, maybe by knockout, but I don't know that it's going to be in round one, so I'm not going to be playing it, I don't think. Moving on, though, we've got our first guy that I think is being brought in for a showcase. We've got Abdoul Abdouraguimov versus Brad Wheeler. I did always hope that we'd get Abdouraguimov in the UFC, but for some reason, they just never signed him, which is just so weird, but good for PFL for picking him up, and he's fighting Brad Wheeler, who, man, I don't know why this fight is happening. So, Abdouraguimov, 16-1-0, 28 years old. He's 5'10", training out of MMA Factory. Wheeler on the other side, 18-13-0. He's 33, so he's 5 years older. 2 inches taller at 6 feet tall. But first of all, the dude hasn't fought since 2019. 4 years and 6 months. It's been a minute. The level of competition, not very good. And he's short notice as well. Abdouraguimov was supposed to fight Quimel Cotoni. I don't know exactly when this fight was made, when Quimel dropped out. But Brad Wheeler is a short notice replacement. They're bringing him in off of a 4.5-year layoff. And even that McGuire fight, man, he was getting out grappled. He's got, I think, 11 submission wins, and he's only been subbed once himself. But his ground game is not that great. I don't really get it. He's getting taken down fairly easily by John McGuire. And Abdouraguimov is a much better grappler than someone like McGuire or anyone really that Wheeler has faced. And I think he's going to roll here. I think he's going to absolutely run through Brad Wheeler. The striking, like, he's a better striker. Neither one is a crazy striker, but Wheeler doesn't offer too much on the feet. And like I said, the ground game easily goes to Abdouraguimov. He's also got 11 submission wins. He's never been submitted himself, but he's subbing way better guys. Even in his last fight against Rafael Heretic, he went up to middleweight to get a second strap in Aries FC. He was losing every single round pretty much for 5 rounds until he got that submission with the knee bar. It was really dope, especially considering I had money on Abdouraguimov. But yeah, I don't see Wheeler winning any rounds. I don't see Wheeler really making it out of round one. So what I'll be looking for is I'll be looking at Abdouraguimov in round one. I think it's at plus 100. Let me double check. Yep, plus 100. I think it's worth at least a half unit shot. I don't like putting more than a half unit on bets like that because there's just too many ways to lose. But I really do think he's going to roll through him. And most of his wins are in round one. Most of his subs do come in round one. 11 of 16 wins coming in round one. 2 of those being knockouts. So 9 submission wins coming in round number 1 out of 11. So we can move on. Not really too much more to talk about there. And for a main event, they brought in Cedric Doumbe, definitely another showcase guy, and he's fighting Jordan Zebo. Doumbe, he's 4-0, undefeated. He's 31 years old, 5'10". And on the other side, we've got Jordan Zebo. He's 4-0, undefeated. He's going to be 23, so he's 8 years younger, 1 inch shorter at 5'9". And he trains out of MMA Factory. For Doumbe, I've got him at Acha Academy with Saladin Parnas, which is a solid place to be. And the thing to note with Zebo is all 4 of his fights, actually 3 of 4 of his fights, have been in Aries FC. And who owns Aries FC? The guy who runs MMA Factory, I believe his name is Fernand Lopez. Didn't want to butcher it, but you can clearly tell because he got very, very favorable matchups. 3-1-0, 0-0-0, 3-2-0. And, he won each one like he should have, but you can tell. And 2 decision wins out of there as well against Caleb Nascimento, who is literally making his debut. Not a great look. Nascimento is really tall, so I guess maybe it was a kind of different look for Zebo there. But overall, he's a solid striker, but it's pretty loopy. His kicks look good. He looks very athletic and powerful, but I definitely don't think he should be standing here. Doumbe is, we know him from kickboxing, 75-7-1 in kickboxing. He's one of the best there is in the world, and he's just a very, very good striker. The thing is with me is I don't think that his striking has translated all that well to MMA so far, at least. Maybe it's because he also has to think about wrestling now. But so far, even though he has gotten 3 knockouts, all 3 of his pro wins are by knockout, it's still not what I wanted to see and not really what I expected to see. What I was surprised about, though, was his takedown defense. His takedown defense does look really good. He's got a good urgency to get back up. Hasn't fought anyone that good with the wrestling, and Zebo is probably the best wrestler he's faced so far. But it is really good to see because you can tell that means he's working on it in his camp, even for his first pro fight. And if he can keep it on the feet, it should be in his favor. Zebo, his wrestling is solid, though. He uses his strength a little more so than technique, but it works for him, and I do think he can get takedowns here. It's just a question of, A, can he keep Doumbe down, and can he really do it over and over again for 3 rounds without getting tired? And can he really do much down there if he is holding Doumbe down? His submission game isn't really that great, but I guess maybe that's a path because Doumbe is green there. And I don't really see him getting a ground and pound knockout. His ground and pound is pretty good, but nothing too crazy. I think Doumbe will outstrike him. I think Doumbe might knock him out. But I don't really want to touch this because Doumbe's literally, 4-0, 3-0. And on the other side with Zebo, he's also 4-0. So it's hard to trust either guy. I think the people who played Zebo at like plus 200, plus 300, I think they did a good job because he does have that grappling edge, and Doumbe is still green in MMA. But now at minus 175, I think the line's pretty accurate, maybe even a little bit too wide. Maybe it should be a bit tighter, like minus 200 Doumbe. Like I said, he is the better striker, definitely the more seasoned striker with, 76 plus 75 plus 7 plus 1, so just over 80 kickboxing fights. He should win this, but until I see more with his ground game, I can't really be playing him. So I'll pick Doumbe. I know a lot of people who are on him, but I know a lot of people who are on Zebo as well. But like I said, I think Doumbe edges it out. Just not something I want to bet on. But that's it, guys. That's 13 fights. That's PFL Europe 3. The playoffs should be a really good card. I'll read off my bets one more time, and then I'll tell you guys the bets that I'm looking to add. So we've got Aleksandr Chizov at plus 275. Like I said, I will add him if it hits plus 200, and I think you guys could play him if it hits plus 200. Then I have Kakhorov at plus 300 for 1 unit. At the current line, I would just leave it alone. Ditcheva by knockout, minus 135 for a unit. That's still there. I think you can play it. Dyer, under 2.5 rounds, plus 105, 1 unit. I think that's a really good bet. But like I said, right now, there's a limit to it. There's only a $100 limit. I don't know if they've lifted it yet, but earlier today, that was the case. And the line is also completely dead. It's minus 185. So at this point, I would stay off of it. If you insist on playing Dyer inside the distance at minus 150, then you might as well just play the under. But I think right now it's just a pass. And in terms of what I'm looking to add, we've got the Powell Rami under 1.5, the Abdouraguimov round number 1, the Scatizzi decision at plus 250. And we're also going to be watching the lines on Kaszuba and watching the line on Nedoh. I don't think Nedoh is going to be playable, but Kaszuba could possibly get playable. If he's like minus 150, then I'm going to hop in. So that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to run back the Dana White's Contender Series episode that we're going to do today. And good luck with all your bets, and peace out.